This is the Corner Cutter Podcast, a consistent weekly show all about speed cubing, and you're listening to episode 52. Hey, welcome to the Corner Cutter Podcast. Podcasting since 2014, I'm your host Josh, and this is the most consistent cubing podcast dedicated to entertain and educate you with in-depth conversations with cubers from all across the sport. My website is thecornercutterpodcast.com, and thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. I do appreciate it. If you have any questions or any feedback, I would love to hear from you. My email address is feedback@thecornercutterpodcast.com. Today, I got a great show lined up. We have some cubing news, shoutouts, question of the month, a new segment, which I'll get to near the end of the show, and also some podcast updates. So let's jump right into the show. Yesterday I went mountain biking, or I guess more trail riding. I really enjoy that. I don't have a real mountain bike as of now, but hope to get one in the next few years. But for now, I just love riding bikes. I love trail riding, and I don't get to do it as often as I would like to. But when I do get the opportunity, it's something I really enjoy. Also, I love running. Well, I don't know if you could say I love running yet, but it's something that I've been doing recently, getting me to exercise every other day and getting out to get my heart rate up and stuff like that. It's something that I haven't done much in the past, but have been doing a lot of recently. Coming up this weekend, I have an obstacle course race, which is a 5K with a bunch of obstacles, so I'm excited for that and training for that as well. So that wraps up my personal update, and let's jump right into cubing news. Okay, Max Park, he got the 3x3 one-handed average world record. It is now 9.42, and he took that away from Kian Mansour. Max keeps dropping it by just a little bit, so I'm guessing it'll still be a while until we see a sub-9 average. One thing, Felix, the other week, he got the 7.88, I think, or 7.44. I was thinking Felix's 6.88 should be DNF'd because it was a misscramble, and then Felix will get the 7.44, I think it was, world record. So Felix still gets to keep the world record, but his faster solve will be DNF'd because it was a misscramble, and it's kind of, in my opinion, is unfair to Max Park. Even though Max Park's solve was only one move away. So that's just my thoughts. Tymon from Poland, he got the Pyraminx world record average, 1.87. This was amazing, although Tymon does average sub 2 at home. He had, his first solve was a 2.9, then he had a 1.52 and a 1.51. So I bet he was pretty excited with when he got those, and then he got a 1.83, and he finished off with a 2.26. So that was awesome. His other averages were both in the low threes of that competition. And finally, the Scube NAR was broken. It is now 2.86. So I think Carter took it away from DRL. Then some releases. Sheng Xiao released the Feng Yuan V2M 3x3. It comes in a box now, similar to Moyus. So, I guess, I mean, it looks like a higher end cube, but it's probably pretty good, but I'm not too impressed with Sheng Xiao's cubes in the past. Then Qi released a whole new line of jelly puzzles. They have 2x2, 3x3, 4x4, 5x5 Pyraminx, Scube, Mastermorphix, Square One, and a mini Pillowed 3x3. Pretty interesting. It's like icy, see-through, sort of see-through plastic. It's unique. I think these shades are pretty similar to the Qion S, I think. It's the 4x4, the stickless version of the 4x4. I'm guessing it's similar frosted plastic to that. Qi also released a pillowed Pyraminx. Looks interesting. And Qi released a secret tutorial book. It goes in depth on how to solve all the common puzzles, including Mastermorphix. And that's only $2.99, which is cool. And that pretty much wraps up releases. The rating for this week is the StackMat G4 bundle. I've had this StackMat for over a year now, and it's been working very well. I ordered it like on Black Friday last year, and I really like it. It's really gotten me used to solving with a real StackMat, because if you just use a computer all the time, the space bar, and then you go to a comp and try to do the same thing, it can be difficult. And I don't know if it's because I got used to competitions or started using a StackMat and got used to a StackMat, because I went to my fourth competition and got my StackMat right before it. So I don't know if I did better because I was using a StackMat or I was just getting used to competitions. But it's really helped me practice and learning how to pick up the cube. It works great too. I've only changed the battery once, I think, maybe twice. And it's a AAA battery, which is super nice compared to the button batteries. And the mat's cool too. I got the green one and it has the WCA logo. So I would recommend it if you're looking to get a StackMat. And that wraps up cubing news. Okay, some shoutouts. I was looking at my Apple Podcasts or iTunes reviews. People have to start using the Apple Podcasts because that's what it is, unless you're actually talking about the iTunes desktop version. That's still called iTunes. So I was looking at my reviews in Apple Podcasts, and I saw a review from Color Coded Cuber. I know I read it a while back, but I don't know if he edited it or something. And he asked what my mains were. So I thought I should run through them quickly. For 2x2, I use Qi Wuxia M black plastic. 3x3, I use the Gan Air SM. 4x4, I now use the Qi Wuxia Mini M. And 5x5, I use a DIY magnetic version of the Qi Wuxia M. Pyraminx is the stickless X-Man Bell. Scube, X-Man Wingy Scube. OH, the Mini Volk. M, DIY M. And Clock, magnetic Lingao Clock. And then Megamix, the Galaxy V2. So those are my mains. Then I want to give a shout out to Tipster Trickster on YouTube. When I said comment shout out, hashtag shout out on YouTube the other week, or I guess it's a month now, he did that, and he said he loves the podcast. So thanks for listening. And Tipster Trickster was featured on episode 49 of the podcast. Final shout out is to Patrick, known as PJK on the Speed Solving forums. He left me a nice review in Apple Podcasts. He said, great guests and topics for speed solving. I enjoy listening to each episode. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Patrick. I really appreciate that. And also, when I posted that I had the interview with Phil Yu on the Speed Solving forums on the Corner Cutter podcast thread, he said, excellent interview with Phil. Well done. Any idea why the settlement would be confidential? Phil didn't give me any information outside the interview, but like you heard last week, everything is going to be fine with a cubicle and they will continue serving customers. Also, Patrick had a recommendation. He had the idea of putting times in the show notes where I transition from topic to topic. I like that idea. If I did it for every topic, it might be a little bit of work, but I most likely will start doing it for when I jump into the guest, when we transition from main topics, or on an episode like this when I transition from records to shoutouts or something like that. So that is a good idea. Just I'll add it into my editing process, so it won't make it that much harder for me. But thank you, Patrick, for listening, and I really appreciate your support. A few updates on the podcast. I got some feedback from listeners that I say this too, the first few episodes are really not that good, and lots of people jump back. When they find a podcast, they jump back to the beginning and listen from the first episode. So I was thinking I was probably turning quite a few people away from not listening to the podcast. So I decided to record a little introductory episode for the Corner Cutter podcast, and I did, and I put it in the feed, and now it's the first episode. So sort of like an episode 0 introducing the Corner Cutter podcast. So if you look in your feed, you could download it and listen. It's just a minute or two. And I also did some work on the website. I added a new picture and edited the pages a little bit. So you can go check that out at thecornercutterpodcast.com. Let's move on to a new segment for the show. I will be having this almost every week, and it's called Alg of the Week. I'll be talking about and going over an algorithm that maybe I enjoy or that you guys send in for me to talk about. First one I mentioned in episode 48 of the podcast, I think. I got my competition PR on this algorithm. And if you have a 2x2 handy right now, grab your 2x2 and you can set it up by going R, U prime, R prime, F, R prime, F prime, R, and then by doing a U2. So this is my favorite algorithm for CLL. You go R prime, U, L, U prime, R, U, L, and then do a U2 to solve it. It just feels good, like you're transitioning from each hand, and I really like it. I got a comment on YouTube on episode 48. He said, I think this case is called Nicholas, and he executes it from another angle, and he does R prime, F, R, F prime, R, U, R prime. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Let me know which one you use. And now let's move on to question of the month. I want to hear the story of the first time you solved the cube. Now, I want to hear from when you had your first encounter to the first time you solved it and your experience with that. The question of the month was originally what was your first encounter, but I want to hear the whole story. So the best way to share this is in audio form. You can either record a message and then send it to me through email, just attach it to your email, or you can go to thecornercutterpodcast.com/feedback and click send an audio message, and you can record your story there. And if you mess up, you can just hit re-record before you send it. So don't worry about that. I want to hear from you, and you have until the end of September to send your questions in. So again, this month's question is, what is the story from your first encounter with the cube to the first time you solved it? And that's just about it I have for this week. I might, at the end, after the outro music, do a 2x2 blind solve where you can do it along with me. So if you're interested in that, listen through the whole episode. And now it's time to take this episode back to the scrambling table. And I'll talk to you guys again next week in episode 53 of the Corner Cutter Podcast. Okay, guys, we are now doing our 2 blind solve. So if you're able to right now, grab your 2x2 and follow along. This idea was inspired by Max, who's on the speed solving forums, and he recently signed up to be an episode on a Cuber Chats episode. So here we go. Scramble it with white on top, green in front. R2, F2, R, F2, U2, R prime, U prime, R, U2. This will probably be the only time that cubing is allowed in the podcast. So I'm going to look around the cube. I always do yellow on top, red in front. So I'm going to flip it. So yellow, so there's the blue and orange block is in the back left corner, and yellow is on top. So back left corner, the block is, and yellow's on top. So we are going to start the solve. Okay, so now follow along with me. You go D, G, I, S, that's on that side, E, B, K. Let's see, K is, I haven't done 2 blind in a little while. K and J. And I solved it. So if you did this along with me, let me know. Feedback at thecornercutterpodcast.com. Let me know if you enjoyed it. So thanks, guys, for listening. I'll see you next week. Bye.